Lots of times on this channel, when we go back to explore the golden age, it's to take a look at characters who had a bunch of potential or who have just been kind of forgotten. Characters who are more interesting than many people tend to give them credit for. However, this time we're going to be looking at a character who it's kind of surprising that they were brought back. It's Miss America, but a very specific version because there's more than one. Marvel Comics, at the time Timely Comics, had a Miss America who did fairly well. But really they borrowed or took the name from a Quality Comics character who already existed. And they took it very close to when she stopped being published. They had only stopped publishing her for a couple of months, and Quality does not seem to have been all that bothered, at least not from what I could find. Maybe they were extremely bothered. There's very little info out there about Miss America, the first Miss America, and her genesis, creation. She appeared 7 times initially, and had many creators working on her throughout that time. So yes, we have much to discuss. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and I hope you like when things get weird, because things are about to get mighty weird. Miss America debuted in Military Comics #1 in 1941. She was created by Elmer Wexler, and was published as mentioned by Quality Comics. She was one of the characters who was later purchased by DC, at the time National Comics. That was in the 1950s, and by then she had already not been used for years. By that point, the original version was in the public domain, but the newer versions created by DC aren't. So for that original time period, as mentioned, she was in 7 issues, had multiple artists who drew her, it's not always clear who wrote the stories, and also she had multiple costumes and jobs all within a short span. It seemed like they were trying to figure out how to make her work, but it just did not happen. Her stories are all over the place, and I wanted to share them with you because we've seen some solid Golden Age outings, so let's take a look at when things don't exactly land. What makes a character not work can be just as interesting as what makes a character work. Now, unlike some Golden Age characters, Joan Dale does have an origin right away. She's got a little splash page, and just as a statement, no, at no point is she tied to the Miss America pageant, which had already started to happen. It wasn't as big as it would get, but it had begun in 1921. As for her debut, here's what we're working with. Miss America. Out of the very heart of the spirit that is America comes a new champion of democracy, young Joan Dale, reporter. Gosh, just think of all the good a person could do if they had the powers that the Statue of Liberty must possess. I wish I had them, but oh well, gee, I'm sleepy. I heard what you said, and I'm going to give you my magic powers so that you may give your country the help it needs. Promise you will do your best. So yes, this is Joan's origin. She fell asleep on a park bench by the Statue of Liberty and had a dream. When she wakes up, she thinks it must have been a crazy dream and tries to just flippantly demonstrate some powers. She tries to make some trees disappear, and they do. Joan can basically do anything, which is actually one of the first problems with the character. Her power set is vast and undefined. There are no boundaries, and because of that, there are no real stakes. There are no rules, so it means that one can't really define how her adventures should or should not go, and she's rarely in any serious peril. It is true. She has given me her powers of magic. I won't fail you. I promise I won't. So Joan's vows that she's gonna help America. How? She's just gonna do stuff. Like on the ferry that she takes, a man starts making a speech about the virtues of democracy against dictators and the like, and people move and they're gonna attack him, so Joan steps in and she turns them all into doves, and she does not turn them back. It's actually some solid symbolism, turning them into a symbol of peace, even though one could infer that this man's speech was likely protesting the war. And it's here that she's dubbed Miss America by this grateful man. Thanks for chasing those thugs away. Girls like you are the real spirit of America. You're the real Miss America. Also, you're magic. Miss America. Miss Am. That's what I'll call myself. Is nobody gonna talk about the fact that she just turned people into doves right in front of everyone? We all saw it. Also, everybody saw her face. Now, Joan, as mentioned, is a reporter, and she does have a job to do. She's off to investigate a bombing at a factory. But rather than just go and report and gather some stuff, she just barges right on up to the FBI and police officers who are investigating the scene. Now, this FBI agent that we see, he may be a recurring character, because later on, she's gonna be involved with the FBI more directly, and it would make sense for this to be the same agent who she's dealing with, but he's not specifically named here. In my headcanon, yes, this is the same agent. He's drawn the same way. Let's say it's the same guy. It adds some continuity to everything. What do you want, miss? I've come to find out who bombed the factory. Oh, you have you? For 6 months, the FBI has been trying to catch these culprits without success. And now you're going to solve the case, just like that. On your way, girl, before I lose my temper. She must think she's a magician. Now's your chance, Joan. No tears, just doves. This is what it sounds like when doves cry. Probably screams as their bones crack and they're slowly shrunk into birds. Now, Joan does keep investigating, and she's able to pick up a fragment and just think really hard and discover where the bombers are just by staring at it. And she decides that, you know what? She is going to capture them herself. Take that, FBI. She learns that it's the boss of the factory who's organized the bombings, and he's planning to take out more factories. And so with no actual evidence, except for what she's overheard, she just marches over to the FBI office and demands that they listen to her. Hello, Inspector. Busy? There he is. He's the leader of the gang. Mr. Grost, for all the silly nonsense, go on, get out of here, and stop wasting my time, Joan. She never told him her name, by the way. It has not come up. He just knows it now. That happens a lot in this story. There are just details that aren't given, and they start happening on the page. There's not great editorial consistency in these Miss America stories. I'm sorry, Mr. Grost. We have cranks like her come in every day. The fools, they won't even listen to me. All right, I'll stop the bombing myself. That night she goes to the factory, they're set to bomb, and when the goons show up, she turns them into trees. Although you could argue that they got off easier because she kills the others. With their own bomb, she makes it follow their car and then explodes it. Miss America is ruthless. She'll kill again. There's also another error that we see when she goes to capture the head of this gang, which is the factory leader, Mr. Gross, that was established. When she's walking up to his house, the narration box says, a few minutes later, Miss America runs up the walk of her boss's home. But her boss is the newspaper guy, and that's not his home, because why would Mr. Gross be at the newspaper guy's apartment? So it just seems to be an inconsistency. That doesn't matter. She's there, and she's there to threaten his life. Now to give you your just reward. No, shoot, please, I'll do anything. All right. Sign a complete confession, and I won't harm you. Go on. And then she marches him down to the FBI, where he could undoubtedly identify her and tell many a tale of her magic, not that people would believe. This guy has seen her twice already, and the FBI agent said her name in front of him, so he could at least mention this sorceress or Miss America, although nobody else knows that she's called that. Only that one guy called her that, and she hasn't called herself that in front of anybody. Anyway, the guy doesn't tell the FBI. He just says that he wants to be arrested and taken away from that wildcat. And she breaks the fourth wall a little bit here at the end by winking at the reader. She can see us. Run! Oh, dude, we're gonna get turned into— I have no big plans, so I'm a teddy bear. Enjoy the bootleg effects. Issue 2. This gives us a little blurb explaining her powers once more and her job. This time, she's just making her way downtown, walking fast, faces past. She's looking for a story, a human interest story for her paper. And it's while she's walking that she sees an attempted kidnapping. So she makes the blackjack that the muggers are using, or the kidnappers, come to life and start beating them while talking to them. And we get to see one of those look at them gams panels. Now these kidnappers are trying to get this immigrant. They don't really go into the details too much. And they want him to become a saboteur. But he says he doesn't want to do that because he's an American now and he's loyal to the country. I am Hugo Walsack. I am citizen of the United States. They are agents from my old country. They want me and many others to sabotage here, but I refuse. I am a loyal American now, and a better one than many who were born here. Miss America will sometimes make these kind of political statements, but they're rarely attached to anything. They're just kind of general and floating there. So Miss America decides to come up with a plan to help this man, and she's going to use herself as bait. Why do these agents want him specifically? What do they want him to sabotage? Is this tied to the war effort? No, those are details. We don't need those. Skip that. They kidnap Miss America. A woman? It's Miss America. How does that guy know to call her that? From the last issue, nobody should know that that's her name. But they do. Really, they should be yelling, look out, it's Joan Dale. This is one of those cases where the suspension of her not having a secret identity or anything to hide, it's a bit difficult. Anyway, this gang has a gorilla. Note that, because it's going to be used to attack her later. But before that, she uses her powers to make the gangsters have huge hats and other shenanigans, of course. She's able to free herself, and then she turns the figures where they are to life in this abandoned amusement park area that they're hanging out in. She also apparently leaves them alive, as we see when she's talking to this very stereotypical native that she's brought to life. Oh, nobody left for me to shoot. I have a better use for your arrow. Shoot it through the window. As the arrow whistles through the window, Miss America leaps nimbly aboard. To Woolsack! Look at the question mark that the guy has back there. He's like, who am I? What am I? What is my purpose? What should I do? At her command, the arrow becomes huge and streaks forward into the night. I hope I'm not too late. So she goes back and stops the hoodlums who are there. And then she saves Woolsack. You're a credit to America, Mr. Woolsack. And I'm proud to be a citizen. This story highlights another issue with these Miss America stories, particularly the first few, and that's aside from the random powers. It's the lack of detail and internal consistency. There's just a lack of care for connective tissue in terms of how Joan is being presented and how the world structure would work, and people do think about those things. They're gonna try to add to that in issue 3, where the paper that she works at is named. It's the Daily Star. This issue has a different artist, Tom Hickey, and no explanation as to her powers is given on the opening page. In this story, Joan finds a defense bond while she's out driving. And when she brings it into her editor's office, he immediately identifies it as a forgery. And then he gets a threatening phone call saying that if he prints anything about it, they're gonna blow up the paper. They actually say blow up his plant. Well, the editor says to heck with that. He prints what he wants. It's his paper. Joan says that this is her story and she's gonna try and crack it herself. When he tells her to wait, that it's dangerous, she storms out and takes the bond with her. Miss America takes things into her own hands. Woman reporters, huh? I'll show that crumb bum what Joan can't do. He never said she couldn't do anything. There's no panel where he says that she can't do anything because she's a woman. It just said it was dangerous. Not once is anything implied. The FBI agent has already said more sexist things to her and will continue to do so. The idea of having Joan be this kind of strong, independent, take no nonsense, she's gonna push back against these stereotypes character is fine. It's just that she needs to actually be pushing back against things that are happening. Now she turns the bond into a flying carpet and rides it back to its origin point. Now the forger is a man named Sampson who was in the office when she was there, and so he's able to identify her. He tries to stop her, but he's no match for magic. Who is? She flies him to the paper by eagle. The editor rushes into his office.
Joan and Samson broken glass? What goes on if I'm not too personal?
I love that he says if I'm not too personal, like, well, I don't want to intrude on whatever this is. Am I interrupting? Cut the chatter, smarty. Here's your big bad bomber in person.
Joan, you're crazy. Hey, where are you running to?
Oh, you fool. And you call woman dumb. But he didn't. I'm all for Joan calling out people, but we need to see it happen, at least in this issue. At least give us something. Unless we're just meant to assume an overall environment of sexism exists, which could be something, but this series has not earned that level of continuity engagement. She isn't even going to be a reporter after this issue. After she captures Samson, we get another great leg shot. Joan is thanked by the FBI agent, who again, I'm assuming is the same one from issue 1. There are some reasons to assume he isn't, because he doesn't recognize her or call her by name, which he had already done in the first issue. This agent is Tim Healy, by the way. He's named in the next issue. Now, Joan quits at the end of this issue. The cause is because the editor says that she's lucky and they should call her Lucky Dale, and she says, how dare you? She's super offended and quits. And then at the start of issue 4, she quits again. We get to see her quit once more because at the end of issue 3, he kind of made a statement that was like, you can't quit, but it wasn't entirely that. But the point is that she quits firmly at the beginning of issue 4. And then she goes to the FBI, to Tim Healy, FBI agent Tim Healy, and says she'll take that job because he offered her a job apparently. And she says that she has a case that she wants to investigate. A dance hall band has suddenly up and joined the military, and she finds their sudden patriotism suspicious. And Ramon, the band leader, hides a paper when her and Tim are there asking him why he and his band joined the army. And that's enough evidence for her. She sneaks back to investigate at night. She gets caught, and unlike the other earlier issues, rather than just reveal her powers right there, she lets them throw her into the river because she says that she can't just reveal that she's Miss America. Now it matters. We're trying to bring in some of those secret identity tropes. This issue, she also has a costume. You see it when she's thrown into the river. She transforms briefly. It's a red top with a blue belt and a white and red striped skirt and a short blue cape. Now it turns out that Joan was right. The band did join for nefarious purposes. Nefarious and complicated purposes. There are going to be some planes that they're going to remote control by music. I'll let the comic explain. This is Camp Bragg. These squares are sections of the field. The band plays robot-controlled planes, each of which will spray its allotted square with bullets and explosive, will be summoned by code notes. Ramon, using the code notes like strings, is the puppet master. He will play a symphony of death. There's a new tank being demoed there. That's part of why this is happening. Of course, this plan cannot stand against Miss America, who turns the planes into chickens. She does actually get briefly hurt in this. Ramon hits her with a car, but she appears to be nigh invulnerable because when she's up later, she doesn't seem to be seriously hurt. She also gets a little sassy this issue. Die, you demon. Ho-hum. What the?
There she is. Get her.
You're trapped. I'm gonna twist your head right off. Boys, you look like taxpayers. That's an interesting statement. Despite now doing more of a secret identity thing, sort of, Joan is mad that Tim gives her a bit of flack for not being around when the saboteurs were caught. And then she wonders why she even quit the newspaper. Now we're getting to issue 5, which I think is my favorite of all of the 7 issues that she's in this original Golden Age run. And that's because it tries to get a tiny bit supernatural. I mean, more so than her powers. Also, the artist has stopped being named on the intro page, but it still looks like Hickey at this point, but not for all of them. Tim and Joan are investigating some missing boats. And as mentioned, unlike her previous boss, Tim is overtly sexist in ways that range from mild to less mild. Guess I'll never understand, woman. Possible submarines about us, a haunted house above us, and you put on lipstick. Joan tosses away the empty lipstick case. Joan, you mad woman, how much are they paying you? Those are refillable. There's a war on. Must look my best for the ghosts. Did you hear what I heard? What she heard was her lipstick case hitting a periscope, because there's a submarine right beneath them. Now, as the submarine rises, they decide to check out whether it's connected to the haunted house up above. Tim does actually explain how he's heard the house was haunted. Villagers say that people disappear in there, which makes Joan want to check it out alone. Tim doesn't love that, but despite being the one who said they should go investigate, he decides, you know what, she can do that, and he'll go check in at the office, and that's going to take him several hours, so bye, Joan. And so Joan is left to explore the house, which is a little creepy. There are doors opening by themselves. There's a bit of a spooky aura. I feel creepy. Something seems to be wrong. Ah! Joan thinks she sees a ghost, only it's not a ghost, although in some of these Golden Age stories it could have been, but it's not. It's a person painted in some kind of phosphorescent paint. Hopefully not radium, otherwise he's going to die soon. It's something luminous. Joan transforms into Miss America right in front of him. This time, her skirt is all white. She takes him out with magic, but then discovers a hidden elevator. Suddenly, a hand darts out from the wall and shoves Miss America into the elevator. The elevator sinks into almost bottomless depths. Put your hands up. Oh, a reception committee. Has anyone the key to the city? Joan's just trying to be sassy. That submarine, you're refueling her. Exactly. The disappearance of those American ships was our work. Cut her down, Eric. Like last issue, she changes what the bad guys are wearing. That's starting to become a recurring thing with her because we saw her do that with the big hats earlier on. So this is one of the things that's consistent. She likes to kind of humiliate them a little bit. There's a little bit of a dark edge to Miss America. I'm not sure if it's intentional, but it keeps happening. I mean, she's killed. She kind of likes to make them squirm. She does end up knocked out and on the sub, but she's too powerful. When they launch their torpedo at the American ship, she just rides it. And all I could think of was Dr. Strangelove, and that's years later. She rides it, she turns it back on the sub, and leads them to get captured. And then she goes back to the house to pretend that she was asleep the whole time.
Oh, Joan, I was so worried. So many things have happened.
Worried? For me?
Yes. It's a shame you wasted your time. A ship captain picked up the 5th columnist, so the case is closed.
Don't you wish you knew how it happened? No, Tim doesn't really care about that. He's not enough of a character to care about that. This story, while simple, is very cohesive. Everything flowed, it made sense, the beats followed off of each other. Her powers, while there, didn't come across as overwhelming. Joan had a consistent personality, and she has a bit of banter, albeit a bit of a toxic thing going on with Tim. But it makes the universe feel a tiny bit more sewn together. And they're also making a bit more of an effort at the secret identity component. Now, issue 6, her costume is different once again. And it seems like we have a different artist, maybe? Now she has a striped top, a white belt with a symbol in the center, and a blue skirt with stars along the edge. She also has a new dress that she talks about. The FBI must be paying well. Now while Joan is out and about, she's knocked over by a youth who's on the run from the cops, who tell her when she flashes her FBI credentials that there's a crime wave, almost as if there's some kind of crime school. Now when she goes to talk to Tim about this, he says that's not their jurisdiction, it's not what they're working on. So she decides, you guessed it, she's gonna investigate on her own. That is the one thing about Joan, she takes initiative. She sees some kids pickpocketing, and then she confronts them as Miss America. And she learns that they're being taught to steal so that they won't steal. They're in an anti-crime club. That sounds really suspicious to her, so she decides to go check it out, and she changes back to Joan to do it, again in front of them. So many people should know who she is. Now this anti-crime club, surprise, surprise, is really a front. A saboteur is running it, and he's taking the kids' strategic places and getting them to do these crimes that destabilize things. All under the guise of saying things like, this will teach them better security. Well, Miss America puts an end to that, seizing a swinging steel chain. Swing it, brother. She turns the steel weight into a rubber ball. Bounce it, brother. And the boys decide no more crime for them. So Joan can wink later when Tim tells her that juvenile crime is down. And that brings us to issue 7, which arguably has the most recognizable superhero type plot, but it's more attached to Tim than to Miss America. Once more, she also has a slightly different outfit. This time the sleeves are longer, the cape is longer, and the stars on the skirt are black. In this one, Joan is hunting some silk robbers, led by the Moth. So we have a villain who has a bit more of like a supervillain type name, and he also has a bit of a personal axe to grind, but it's with Tim. Healy's being pressured to find the Moth, who has evaded him a few times. So when he gets a note, he decides that he's gonna go and investigate it, but he says Joan can't come. Listen, lightning strikes twice, the Moth. My hat, Miss Dale. I'm off to the warehouse alone. No mollycoddle dame with me this time. I like that. Mollycoddle. The dame part was fine. It is the golden age after all. D is for dame. Now to go with him, she changes into Miss America and turns herself into his car hood ornament. And it's more to spite Tim than to actually stop the Moth's crime spree, and him stealing silk in this time period would have been a pretty big deal. Silk was used in a lot of wartime efforts. It was used to make parachutes. It was used to make secret maps. It was used for powder bags, for naval guns. There were a whole bunch of purposes for it, so the Moth is a genuine menace. He's also presented as a legit criminal. He's actually pretty dangerous. He would have killed Healy if Miss America wasn't there to catch him after the Moth punched him off a roof. The Moth does try to kill Miss America with silk. He also calls her a nosy dame. We're up to 2 dames this issue. But she's flying around, transforming things. Tim is knocked out again when he tries to help, and ultimately Miss America shoots down their plane as they try to flee. She turns a water hose into a fire hose and kills again. And so the Moth is killed, and we end off our issue. In Healy's office the next day. Well, you got your wish. Moth bit a hole, all right. Lucky you weren't along. You might have been hurt. It's nice to spend a quiet evening darning stockings for a change. There's a different artist this issue. And that's the last line from her from the Golden Age. You already know it's over because beneath the stories before, there was a tune in next month for more Miss America. But in this, there's just a buy military comics banner. You can see as this is going on that they're trying to figure out a rhythm for Miss America, and it's not really happening. This is also a period when there are lots of characters being created, lots of superheroes, and lots of patriotic characters. So you gotta do something to make them stick and land really quickly. But the flaws with her kind of start from her conception. A lot of it has to do with how overpowered she is. She also lacks focus for her crusade. She doesn't have much of a personality. She does have some fun moments, but overall doesn't stand out. But Miss America is fairly flat a lot of the times. The stories aren't always the most compelling, and they often lack salient details. She also has multiple creators working on her, so it doesn't feel consistent that way either. Her last issue is in 1942, and by 1943, Timely has their Miss America, Madeline Joyce. She debuted in Marvel Mystery Comics 49, where she would appear for 2 issues before getting her own book, Miss America Comics, in 1944. She has a much more solid origin, and it bears no resemblance to this Miss America. She got struck by lightning while holding a certain device, and that gave her powers. It's also very dramatic because she's using a device invented by a scientist who, when he sees her passed out, assumes that she died and kills himself. The Golden Age went hard. And they would also play a bit more with genres with her, trying to get her to fit and appeal specifically more to young girls as time went on. And the superhero stories we dialed way back. It becomes more like a magazine. This is also the series where Patsy Walker, who will eventually become Hellcat, is introduced. Although this Miss America would find herself as a member of the All Winners, alongside Namor, Captain America, the original Human Torch, the Wizard. And as for qualities Miss America, it seems like they just let her go. DC would manage to bring the character back, specifically Roy Thomas, who loved to bring back Golden Age characters and also hyper-focus on certain details about their origins. He would bring her into the universe as a member of the Freedom Fighters. And she would also die fairly quickly, initially. She got better. She would fully debut in All-Star Squadron 31 in 1984. She's also positioned as a bit of a Wonder Woman replacement during the time when they're crunching down timelines, because then certain characters, if everything is happening all at once, can't have been active at certain times, that being post-Crisis Infinite Earths. However, later retcons that would allow for there to be 2 Wonder Woman would kind of change her position again. It's complicated. The point is, there was a time when she was associated with the JSA. What's really interesting is how they kind of handle her origin story. They retell it in Secret Origins 26 in 1988, and they still keep the whole dream sequence and give her the ability to transmute matter. And a bunch of her stories, the 7, are kind of crunched into one. But what's interesting is while they keep the dream, they try and make it make more sense, but in some ways it makes it even more convoluted. So here, on top of adding a mask to her, because it clearly bothered Roy Thomas that she was maskless, maskless heroes seem to have bothered him because he did the same thing to Liberty Bell. But they also, in her origin, add the fact that this dream was because she was being experimented upon. She was abducted and given powers, but the scientists didn't think that they worked, but they had. Is that better than just a dream? Or should they just have kind of altered the origin altogether? What do you think? Or do you think that Miss America was a character kind of best left? Although I can see why they pulled her a little bit if you needed somebody to fill in certain Golden Age adventures. She's still not the strongest character, not in terms of power set, but just in terms of characterization. But she does gain some legitimacy when she's paired up with the Freedom Fighters and integrated into the larger DC universe. She fits a bit better. For example, she becomes the adoptive mother of Lita Hall, who was originally Wonder Woman's daughter, but that had to be retconned post-Crisis. My favorite Miss America story is probably also the most horrific for her, here in the JSA The Golden Age. If you know, you know, it's not a great time to be Miss America, but she also probably has one of the most heroic plot lines at the end of the day. There's a way to look at it like that. We'll talk about that sometime, but we've been going on enough. So Miss America. Personally, I can see why she didn't really take off at the time. There were a lot more interesting heroes coming out quite rapidly and who were a bit more fully formed. I'm curious if anyone other than a classic comics aficionado would have brought her back. Or do you feel that actually there's a lot of potential and fun to be had here? Roy Thomas has a tiny blurb about her in the All-Star Companion. Also, that book says that she got her costume in issue 3, but it's issue 4. I'm fairly sure that's just a brief little typo Rainbow Era because the image that they show is even from issue 4. This other image though, the Stone Age Chapter 5 one, is of Madeline Joyce. It's from All Winners Comics number 19 from 1946.
It just amuses me that the timely version has better image quality in a blurb that is largely about the quality one.
So that was a foray into the golden age where something didn't really stick. What did you think of Miss America? What do you think of the whole crop of patriotic heroes? Do you think that she could have worked? I want to hear all your thoughts. Please share your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.